From the branding their farmhands to accidentally sterilizing their own siblings, here's why I think the Duttons are actually the bad guys in Yellowstone. The thing is, over the past 5 seasons, the Duttons have shown that they're willing to use any means necessary to protect their land from enemies of all kinds. And clearly, as the heroes of the series, I couldn't help but be on their side as I watched them fight external forces to keep their land and their simple way of life. But once I got past the drama of their high-stakes world, I asked myself, are they really the heroes of their story? Well, their branding tradition certainly doesn't make them the heroes. The cruel tradition was first shown in the first episode when Rip gave Jimmy a brand and told him that the only way he could live was to work as a farmhand on the Yellowstone ranch forever. You see, the brand is a very important part of the series, as it is usually used to mark cattle as personal property. And the idea of branding a person and telling them that they have to work on the ranch for the rest of their lives, or they'll be killed, isn't only questionable, it's downright evil. And John, played by Kevin Costner, the head of the Dutton family, seems to have started this tradition by taking young men with no other options and giving them a home on his ranch if they promised to do his bidding for the rest of their lives. But the worst part was when he went as far as to brand his own son. The characters act as if the cattle brands are some kind of pact or reward for loyalty, but when you really think about it, it's much more like a cult. And that's not all. The Duttons' use of what they call the train station is another one of the worst things about them. It's actually part of a cliffside road that's not in any county. And if a crime were to happen there, it wouldn't be the responsibility of any county, so a jury couldn't be put together to try the Duttons. So the family uses this cute little place to get rid of their opponents' bodies. This was shown in the first few episodes when one of the farmhands was fired for breaking the most important rule of the ranch. That is, not to start a fight. You see, in a normal job, you would get a pink slip or maybe some severance pay, but John Dutton likes to do things the good old-fashioned way. I think this is what the Duttons do instead of signing an NDA. I mean, think about it. If your family has a place where they kill people and hide their bodies, how can you call yourselves good people? But I think that's enough for the external factors to weigh in, when there's a heavy impact of abuse within the family. As we've probably noticed, the Dutton family has a very complicated relationship with each other. But that's still an understatement. Yellowstone shows all kinds of family problems, from fighting siblings to abusive parents. And fans know that for many characters, the abuse and trauma they faced as children greatly affects how they act as adults. But while everyone was dealing with abusive parents, I think Beth may have been the person who suffered the most at the hands of her own family. In a flashback, we see her mother getting thrown off a horse and using her dying breath to blame her daughter. Beth also has a very bad relationship with her brother, Jamie, who had her sterilized without her knowledge while he was helping her get rid of an unwanted pregnancy. Now that's messed up. And because of this trauma, the two of them have fought a lot and verbally and physically hurt each other. But as we saw in the last season, Beth's blackmailing Jamie over the death of his biological father was the most intense. And even though they're fighting for the same thing, the Duttons are deeply dysfunctional and resort to physical and emotional violence whenever they fight. But even if we were to ignore the trauma and abuse, one of the things that determine the Duttons' morality is their family's history and their right to be on the land in the first place. The Duttons are often at odds with the leaders of the Broken Rock Reservation, but you can't judge the Duttons without knowing how their family got the land. The Yellowstone universe, especially the prequels, sheds light on the tragic conflicts that arose from Western expansion and how they still affect indigenous communities today. In 1883, a Native American tribe gave the land to James Dutton on the condition that it be returned to their descendants in 7 generations. And this is where the story of the Yellowstone Ranch started. Even though the land was a gift and not technically stolen, there's still a big difference between how the Duttons lived and how the people on the reservation lived. It can also be hard to believe that the Duttons are doing the right thing by protecting their family legacy when many people think they have no right to it in the first place. And clearly, what the Dutton family goes through goes far beyond character flaws. So, can we call them the good guys in the story? Well, here's the deal. The Yellowstone characters operate in a gray area, for sure. It's often hard to tell who is right, but that is what makes the story so interesting and complex. And just like people living real lives, they make good and bad decisions, and have to deal with the consequences of those decisions. Even if the Duttons end up being the bad guys in their own story, you can't help but root for them every week when you watch to see what new hell they've gotten themselves into. And when the second half of Season 5 comes back, I think it'll be interesting to see if the characters will keep going down a darker path, or try to make things right as the show comes to an end. And while the characters navigate through their own faults, I think Season 5 can still turn the Duttons into heroes. You see, after John's son Casey Dutton went through a ritual to become a full member of his wife Monica's tribe at the end of Season 4, he might unknowingly become the key to returning the Yellowstone Ranch to the Confederated Tribes of Broken Rock. On top of this, the land-grabbing company Market Equities, which billionaires back, is threatening to swallow up Paradise Valley. This gives the Duttons more reasons to work with Broken Rock to find a long-term solution to their land disputes. As Yellowstone is both a neo-Western and an anti-hero crime drama, it shows its bad guys in a complex way. Even though Casey Dutton's visions showed that there would be death and betrayal at the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch in the future, Casey's monologue about the end could also be about how the Duttons could help Monica, Mo, and Thomas Rainwater's people get back to where they came from in the past. And for the younger generation, Casey and Monica's son, Tate, is the only 7th generation Dutton in the show. Now, Tate is a Dutton and also a full member of the Broken Rock community. But while everyone on the ranch answers to John Dutton, John himself answers to his only grandson, Tate. And in the end, John will have to face what kind of legacy he leaves in Tate's hands.